So, everyone's expecting great things, and so am I, so we might as well get started here. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. This is, I believe, going to be a very memorable day for the city of Sudbury and the province of Ontario as well. I'd like to recognize our guest here today, Mr. of Economic Development, Brad DUGUID, MPP for Scarborough Centre, Glenn Thibeault, the MPP for Sudbury, and who is the Minister of Energy, Mayor Brian Biggar for the greater city of Sudbury, and Mr. John Frasca, who's the CEO of Frasca International, who are the co-signers here today on this little venture that we're moving forward with. Randy Gowanda from Frasca as well, who is in charge of their business development. So, ATCL, AIRCREW Training Canada Limited. Something that's been near and dear to my heart for a number of years, helicopters and training. We've been able to pull it all together into one organization that whose time has come really for the country. At the present time, there is no facility that offers the level of training and flight simulation that is required by the Canadian helicopter industry. So subsequently, all of the simulation training for rotary wing is being done in locations throughout the United States. So no matter if you're a public sector operator like a police agency or an air ambulance or what have you, a commercial operator such as Canadian Helicopters or HTSC, or a private corporate owner that requires their pilots to do recurrent training, you're going to go to the States to do it. What we're announcing today is the startup of AIRCREW Training Canada Limited, which will eradicate that hole in the training capabilities of the country. We will be the first full motion Level D flight simulator training facility in Canada that caters to rotary wing training. We will also be providing maintenance type training for specific models of aircraft, primarily S-76s and others of that type. The current situation where in some days you'll have pilots that'll be out of country for up to a month doing training some places in US dollars, flying all over the place to do it, doing training that's not really pertinent to the scenarios that they'll face when they get home. Because if you're doing a flight training simulation in, for example, Louisiana, they're primarily going to be showing you how to fly out to a rig in the Gulf of Mexico, and that doesn't do much good for you when you're in Sudbury trying to find a helipad in Temagami. So the training that we're going to be providing will be focused on the scenarios that the pilots who will be training here will be actually engaged in doing on their ongoing basis day to day. So we believe that it'll be a much better basis of training and provide for them a lot more pertinent information in their training exercises. This venture will provide a significant economic benefit to the city of Sudbury and the economy of Northern Ontario when you consider that we will have in excess of 1,000 students a year, or pilots coming through in the course of a year, staying for weeks or up to a month at a time. There's a significant impact in the hospitality industry and accommodations, etc. So not only are there going to be a significant number of high-paying jobs, but there will also be significant other economic benefits that will spin off. We are here today to sign this letter of intent between FRASCA and ATCL to acquire these 4 Level D flight simulators. We are in the process of finalizing the location for the construction of the facility. We have a preferred site, and the city has been very accommodating in moving the obstacles out of the way so that that site can proceed, and we're very, very happy with that. There is, however, a requirement from further participation by the province and by the federal government in order to ensure that this moves forward in a timely manner. We have ongoing discussions with the province and with the federal government to ensure that that happens. We, as part of our overall program, we also have a requirement to develop courseware. And we have engaged in discussions with Lockheed Martin to create the courseware necessary for us to provide our services to both the pilots and the maintenance engineers. Part and parcel to that, we have indicated to Lockheed Martin that it's our desire that if, when they create this courseware and going forward as it matures and continues to be developed, we're looking at having an association with the Laurentian University. Lockheed Martin has indicated that they've made contact with Laurentian. They have reviewed some of the programs that Laurentian offers, and they've identified 7 course programs that they feel they would be able to participate in either internships or cooperative programs, and we're looking forward to seeing that move forward as part of the courseware development on an ongoing basis, because the development of these young people's capabilities are going to be required by us at ATCL. And we're hoping that some of the participants from the Laurentian programs will ultimately end up being full-time, long-term employees with us. And that's one of the ultimate goals for us, is to create ongoing, long-term employment for Northerners so that you don't have to leave Northern Ontario to get a good, high-paying aerospace job. You can do it right here in town. So that's about as much of my ramblings as I can handle here right now, and I'm sure more than you guys could actually stand. So I'd like to ask John Frasca to come step up and say a few words about his company, and then afterwards we will sign the LOI. Some of the guests will have an opportunity to say a few words, and then after that we'll be available for one-on-one questions. So, John?
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. My name is John Frasca. I'm CEO of Frasca International. Frasca is a manufacturer of aircraft flight simulators. It's a company my father founded in 1958. We've built about over 2,000 simulators and delivered them throughout the world since then. We've worked with hundreds of aviation companies during that time, and I have to say, working with AIRCREW Training Canada and Dan and his team has been a real pleasure. They're incredibly thorough in their process. They're asking us questions, digging deep on simulation, and it's clear they've done a lot of research in coming to this point. And you know, having been involved in simulation, we can really appreciate you know, a thoughtful developer like this. Let me tell you a little more about Frasca. I believe we're truly a unique company. At a time when the aerospace industry is consolidating and a lot of companies are becoming integrators, we've strived to be a vertically integrated company. We design and manufacture nearly all of the components that go into our simulators. And we think this allows us to have a very high quality product and enables us to you know, provide the product support, a single point of contact when something goes wrong or when service is needed. By controlling all aspects of the simulator, we ensure a long life for that simulator. Frasca will be providing AirCrew Training Canada with 4 Level D full flight simulators. These are the most advanced simulators in the world. They're the highest qualification that Transport Canada or any of the world authorities offer. The simulators each have a 6-axis motion system. You can see the video running. They're very large devices. The legs move the simulator around and provide pilots with the motion cues that are important in learning to fly and being enveloped into the operation. The simulators also include a very realistic visual scene that duplicates the out-the-world view. So, you know, we will have the Sudbury area or whatever mission environments programmed into the simulator instead of Louisiana, as you mentioned. Cockpit environments are an exact replica of the aircraft. We're talking about 4 different aircraft from 4 different manufacturers here, and they will duplicate every switch and knob and instrument in there. The controls have forces on them, so the pilot feels exactly in the simulator what he'd feel in the aircraft. Sounds are simulated so that he hears exactly what he hears in the airplane. In fact, this is something I've been working my whole life in with my dad, and we were doing virtual reality before anybody knew what to call it. It was you know, trying to develop a synthetic environment, and really is a fun field to be in. I apologize for using written notes, but you know, Dan is very good at shooting from the hip. I have to follow along or I ramble like crazy. Let's see. Yeah, with regards to, you know, FRASCA in Canada, we've been here a long time. My first project as an engineer was building simulators for the Edmonton Flying Club and Selkirk College. FRASCA as a company have simulators in Seneca College, Confederation College, Sioux College, and, you know, many operators throughout Canada. Adventure, you know, very large percentage of Canadian pilots have received some training in a FRASCA simulator. Just last year, we delivered a simulator to the HNZ Canadian helicopters in Edmonton. So, you know, we're very current in our activities here. And right now we have a project with KF Aero in Southport to provide a simulator for training Royal Canadian Air Force pilots. So we're very active in Canada. We look forward to this, to growing that even more so. FRASCA looks forward to a long relationship with AIRCREW Training Canada, first in standing up this training center, and then in further developing its capabilities. We were discussing last night, you know, potential beyond these 4 simulators and specific mission training that's critical in this area. The training center will clearly support and grow the aerospace industry here in Ontario. First, you know, there's direct employment and indirect employment, but also, you know, there will be thousands of pilots from throughout the world visiting Sudbury, and I think that's notoriety. The mayor was just telling me about the observatory laboratory in the mine and how, you know, world famous that is. I think this has that same potential to, you know, people from around the world will learn about this. I'll wrap up quickly here. When I started my career in simulation, I was an engineer, and I was really caught up in the technical aspects of simulation. It was fun to build them, it was fun to design them. However, as time has gone by, and I've been doing this for 40-some years, I've grown to appreciate that the importance of simulators is what they can do for safety. They save lives. By performing flight training in a simulator, pilots are safer. They can practice emergency procedures that they can't do in the airplane, and as a result, aviation is safer. ATCL will improve aviation safety, and I believe ATCL will save lives in their training. So this is a very important venture. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Dan, for working with us on this project. We look forward to this opportunity and continued work here. Thank you.
Put the John Henrys on it. Well, just before I ask our guests to step up and say a couple of words, I was remiss when I started off. ATCL is not moi, it's the team, and part of the team is Joe Natale, who is the COO, Dennis Venturi, who is our Vice President of Flight Training Development, and Tom Grover, who is our VP of Maintenance Training Development. I want to mention one other gentleman, a very near and dear friend who came up from down south today to witness this, is a gentleman who I have known for my entire aviation career, all 42 years of it so far. He's a gentleman who started flying helicopters the year I was born, 1954. He many years flew with Ontario Hydro. He retired, started up his own company, and at one time was the largest single lessor of helicopters in the country. He was a very ahead of his time and quite an entrepreneur. And I'm very pleased that Jim, you could make it up today and just stand up and give everybody a wave. Great stuff. So, without further ado, who would like to come up? And Brad, you want to come up and say a couple of words?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. I am delighted to be here with Mayor Bigger and my good friend Glenn Thibault. Dan, I want to begin by thanking you for your vision for aerospace here in Sudbury. I mean, this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of Ontario's economy. And as Minister of Economic Growth, Economic Development and Growth, and as having been Minister of Economic Development for many years before, I can tell you we're in a very exciting time right now in Ontario. And as I go around the province, I like to talk about it because it's really important that we feel confident with where we are in this province. And our friends from Frasca may not be familiar, but there are many Ontarians that may not be familiar with where we're at economically today. We know there's lots of uncertainties in the world, and a lot of that comes from when we were talking earlier with some of you about the disruptive technology that's taking over virtually every sector of our society, whether it's the construction fields, the infrastructure fields, whether it's financial services, whether it's aerospace. No matter what you do today in our economy, disruptive technologies are taking over. And the good news is Ontario's at the center of a lot of that, driving that disruptive technology, so it's a good place to be. The other challenge are uncertainties, global uncertainties, like we see south of the border, for instance, in changes that may be taking place to NAFTA and other things, and that kind of throws people off a little bit too, makes people feel a little bit uncertain. The good news here in Ontario is that as we face these challenges, we come from a position of strength. When we look at where we're at today economically, our unemployment rate is at a 10-year low, which is great news. We've created close to 700,000 net new jobs since the global recession. We're not only leading our country in growth, we're leading the G7 in growth today, which is a good place to be as we face some of these technologies. But it's projects and consortiums and partnerships like we see here today that's really driving Ontario's growth. And that's really what I want to speak to today. And Dan and Joe and everyone else here that's part of that partnership. Laurentian University is here. That's what makes Ontario the growth center that it is today. The partnerships between our post-secondary system, among the best in the world, producing some of the best talent anywhere in the world, and it is all about talent. Our infrastructure companies that we see here today as well, driving the infrastructure, doing the construction in very modern ways and in very efficient ways. Our partners from the South, Frasca, and the whole, I know you've got a number of representatives here today from Frasca, investing in Ontario because it's a good place to invest. And the innovation that you bring and the innovation that we produce here, all of that together, to me, is what makes Ontario's economy tick. Now, I recognize that while Ontario is growing at a rate that we haven't seen in a very long time, we still have parts of the province that aren't quite growing at the same pace. But we have champions like the mayor and Glenn here in Sudbury that are doing their very best to ensure that we focus on our strengths, which of course is mining, and the next generation of mining through innovation in mining, but also on diversifying the economy in the north, in aerospace. Ontario has one of the fastest growing aerospace clusters anywhere in the world today. In fact, if you look at an airplane anywhere in the world, there's likely almost 100% going to be some Ontario parts on that plane. Chances are the landing gear was either assembled here in Ontario, which is very likely, or parts of that landing gear were developed here in Ontario. It's an industry that has fantastic potential for job creation, and that's the kind of industry that is province-wide. And that's the kind of diversification that communities like Sudbury can really find that they can catch up on in terms of economic growth. So I am absolutely delighted to be here today and excited. And Dan's vision goes and Joe's vision goes well beyond just vision for their sector. They're really smart to get the Minister of Economic Development here before we've even entered into too much serious discussions on potential participation from the province of Ontario. So I have nothing to announce today yet. But to tell you that he really has brought me into this, and it made me very excited about the potential for this project. And Ontario has participated in the past with Joe and Dan's company, and I'm sure we'll be happy to be there in the future. We still have some discussion to do and some work to do in terms of exactly how that's going to happen. But this is the kind of investment that I think Sudbury can be very, very proud of, and the kind of investment that's helping Ontario become the North American economic leader that it is today. So thank you to all the partners that are here today. Congratulations on bringing this exciting investment together, and we're going to be excited to be a part of that moving forward into the future. Thank you so very, very much.
Brian, would you like to? No? Well, that basically concludes the formal part. If any of the media want to do one-on-ones with any of us, we'll be more than happy to do that. For everyone that showed up today, thank you very much for coming. We very much appreciate your attending. Thank you. Oops, sorry. How's that? Good.
And how big is the investment by ATC?
It'd be in excess of $70 million roughly in total between the simulators, the buildings, the courseware development, all the rest of it. It's a very sizable investment, and that's why, we've been able to secure some private provisional funding, but it's going to require participation by the province and by the federal government in order to ensure that this moves forward.
What kind of participation from the province do you require?
Are you talking we're talking about a capital injection, either loan guarantees, grants, combinations thereof, or whatever.
How quickly is all this going to come together?
Well, excuse me. The finalizing the location, we're hoping that the location, all the details will be worked out on that within the next 30 to 60 days. After that, we will be concentrating on finalizing the discussions with the province and with the federal government. If we're successful in securing the funding levels that we need to move forward, the plan is to place the order for the simulator as soon as possible. It's a 14-month delivery time for the first simulator. So we're projecting a late summer, early fall of 2018 to be up and running. So it's about 18, 20 months from now.
Dan, where the pilots are now being trained,
Yeah.
what if the U.S. facilities where they're being trained see this as, okay, now we're going to change our prices to match you or better you? The field of competition. Mm-hmm. What if they undercut your price?
They'd have to do a very significant cut, because even if we're matching their prices, we have the exchange rate advantage right off the bat. Second of all, it's a lot less expensive for an operator, say an operator like Orange, who has 85 pilots. It's a lot cheaper for them to send them from Moosonee to Sudbury than it is from Moosonee to Louisiana. So it also would make it a lot more convenient, a lot more conceivable that instead of going once a year for a long period of time, they could come down twice a year and spread it out and have more quality training with less expense. So we're you know, and the thing about it is that the market in the States is fundamentally different than what we're starting off with up here. You know, you've got some issues now, people going into the United States with TSA. Some of the foreign operators that are currently sending people to the U.S. are having difficulty getting them through immigration to get them in to do the training. So there has been a great deal of interest from international clients to be able to do that kind of training here in Canada and avoid some of those pitfalls.
Now you mentioned upwards of about 50 jobs to begin with. Can you tell me what kind of jobs we're talking about? Exactly what? What are
Sure. Yeah, the initial jobs will be flight simulator instructors. There'll be program managers. There will be simulation maintenance people. There'll be computer programmers. There'll be scenario creators who create the various scenarios for the different clients. There will be obviously some administration and some receptions and accounting, that kind of thing. Schedulers. So there's quite a variety of things. We're anticipating that the initial 50-person payroll will be in excess of $4 million. So I mean, the average cost is about $80,000, which is the industry standard for aerospace right now.
What's the current ATCL manpower level?
The four of them, they're all here.
This will be a big...
Yeah, it will be. I mean, we're still in the development stages, but we're still in ongoing discussions with Lockheed Martin to develop the courseware. So as things start to move forward, and once we've secured funding, we'll start to bring people on board to develop the stuff that we need to develop.
Who will the students be exactly? Are these military students? Are they just who are they?
Primarily commercial students. There'll be guys who currently fly for various companies. So it could be a pilot from Orange who's been flying commercially for 20 years. Could be an OPP pilot. Could be a gentleman who is working for Canadian Helicopters in Azerbaijan, flying a contract, who has to do his recurrency training. So when he's off on time off, they send him over and we do his recurrent training at that time.
And we're just talking helicopters here, right?
Just helicopters.
Just helicopters.
Just helicopters.
How many similar training simulators are there in Canada, the world, globally?
Well,
how unique will this be?
There's thousands of flight simulators around the world. In Canada, there's a handful of maybe 2 or 3 that are close to the capabilities or sophisticated levels that these simulators will be. And there is no independent third-party training facility that we're proposing that's in Canada right now. That doesn't exist.
What about in the States?
In the States, there's service providers there, such as Flight Safety International and some of the others that are down there. Yeah, that's where the guys are going right now that are going down there. They have to go down there.
Thanks, Dan.
Great.
Mr. Melanson?
Thanks.
You got your government check? Sudbury.com. Great to see you. Give you my card here as well. Oh, great. You have it.
You want me looking at
Can you give me an idea of what kind of role you see the province having in this helicopter initiative?
Well, we've supported this company in the past through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, and our role is multiple. Customer, because Orange trains pilots for medical evacuation purposes, and right now we have to send our pilots down south for training. So there's an opportunity potentially for cost savings for Orange, but also to ensure that those benefits accrue here in Ontario. And then there's the job growth opportunities, which in something like this are huge, because there's a huge spin-off opportunity within this aerospace sector for job creation. So the opportunities for the province are significant. And the potential for partnership. The company's already approached us for potential business supports, and we're looking at that now.
How long a process before you think you can make an announcement on supporting this?
Oh, it's not usually too long. We've managed to change the government of Ontario now. We're very streamlined in the way we do things. That's why I think one of the reasons we're leading the country in growth is the fact that we're leaders in innovation. We're leaders now as a government in being a business-friendly environment. Cutting back on red tape is something that we're leading the world in, which is a great place to be. And that's one of the reasons I think we're attracting the investments that we are.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.